if you bring people together, disparate backgrounds, disparate ways of thinking, what you wind up doing is building a better world. As you move into a world that is shockingly more complex, you cannot have a siloed approach to how you do anything. Examples, advanced air mobility. If what you're trying to do is simply recreate inner-city air traffic in advanced air mobility, the whole thing is going to fail. So you have to bring in people with surface transportation concepts, development concepts, a different way of looking at things. And what the Boeing Center at Techport really does is it creates an environment that attracts people to the same space, that has enough different flavors that will attract people that normally would never spend time with each other. Mm-hmm. And whether it's gaming or metal or armored MMA, you get people in a room who have stuff in common, and they forget they're not supposed to like each other. They forget they have barriers between them. And out of that, you can then start to mine for ideas. And we found those ideas in places like Plus One Robotics and Knight Aerospace and a host of other companies.
Very cool. Yeah, well, I think we at Velocity, that's the thesis that we also have, is these collisions are where these amazing things happen. And so we spend a lot of time on how do we develop explicit programming, but to your point, also just fun that brings people out. And so participation in the ecosystem is important. So how do you, I mean, bring in great bands as an example, but like what are the explicit things that you do to kind of force that collision?
I don't think you can force them. I think a lot of it is what you are doing here at Velocity. You become as much a part of the neighborhood and the ecosystem that this stuff happens organically. So we've got the bar, we can do happy hours. We've got children's programming, we've got the gaming center. And the beautiful thing about the gaming center is the kids get in there and they find relationships amongst each other. The parents, the caregivers, the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents that are dropping people off, you find relationships as well. So it really is, you create a center point, a gathering point, a Main Street USAA, if this was a Disney park, and then everything builds off of that. Where I will give you all a ton of credit, that's really what you're doing over here. This is less a biomedical destination than it really is an extension of a couple of different communities to bring together people that normally would never talk to each other.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we're trying. I did not mean for that question to be, complimentary of us, but more that I think we're focusing on kind of similar concepts, that it's really when these people from different areas and sectors and perspectives come together, that really interesting innovation emerges. And so we're on a smaller scale than what you guys are doing there, but we try. That's why we call it Collision Cafe over there. That's our point. Okay, what's been the best show that you've had at Techport?
Oh, that's like asking me who my favorite child is. So.
Yeah, well, that's fine too.
There's a couple. We had Parkway Drive come in, which is Australian metalcore out of Byron Bay. Mm-hmm. And I have been a big fan of theirs for years. So seeing these guys not only live and in person, but on our stage was just personally gratifying. We had Cannibal Corpse, which is a nonsense band I remember from being a young guy back in the 90s. Yeah. And seeing them come, and Corpse Grinder coming out, looks like a thumb, but he's one of the nicest human beings on earth, was fantastic. And we had things like armored MMA, where you get these guys wearing suits of armor with swords and maces going at each other, which is just funny. It's hard to determine which one is the favorite show. Mm-hmm. Where it is most gratifying, though, is that building exists at its core to support our educational efforts. So you will see one day it's doing a crazy show. You got a metal act in there. You have ESPN doing Matchroom Boxing. I think they do some Matchroom Boxing is a different show. ESPN is whatever they are. Then the next day or the next week, you got 1,500 kids in there with the Hispanic Chambers Corps for STEM. Or you've got our computer build program with the Kelly Heritage Foundation and the San Antonio Museum of Science and Technology. Or you have Fiesta de los Niños, where you bring in 10,000 people from the community for a free fiesta event. And that's truly what makes the place gratifying.
Yeah. Well, so can you walk through? So you touched on it, the museum. I have taken my kids; it's wonderful. But can you talk about some of the things that you have in there? And then, yeah, that training. There's that computer training center. Can we talk?
Yeah, so you've got the San Antonio Museum of Science and Technology, which is really the brainchild of David Monroe. And David, absolutely a wonderful human being, tremendous loss to this world that we lost him. But he was somebody that from the first time I ever met him just inspired me. He had achieved tremendous things in his career. But he was still a kid at heart and still somebody who really believed that people can do whatever you tell them they're capable of doing. And so that place is not just a technological showcase and an educational showroom. It's as much a place where people can come in and realize that rocket science really isn't rocket science, that signal stuff really isn't that hard. You can do a lot as long as you have somebody who's willing to believe in you, somebody who's willing to open doors for you, and somebody who's willing to break down some of those barriers, which could be costs. And that's where the gaming center next door comes into play. The gaming center becomes something of a gateway. Kids will come in because they want to play computer games. To get better at a computer game, you really have to understand how that computer works. To understand how that computer works, you find yourself doing applied mathematics, applied computer science, applied programming, coding, all of that stuff. And it's not until they're deep into it they realize they're actually tremendously capable. And all of that being done at the place where people from Peraton and Leidos and Northrop Grumman and Boeing and Standard Aero all gather in the 16th Air Force starts to create a opening that these people just didn't know was available to them. Yeah. And it is a tremendously different future than being told that your future is hospitality or warehousing or manufacturing. And on that, I'm going to brag on y'all because you don't like doing it. That's the same thing that you're doing over here. There is a tremendous biomedical and medical research capability in San Antonio. It's one of the cores that really drives our entire economy. Getting that into the neighborhood, getting that at a level which is, you know, what the tech people call on the edge, that truly bleeding edge, and I probably shouldn't use bleeding in a medical environment, but that's something that is in many respects groundbreaking. And the fact that you are so much a part of the community, you are not necessarily in a downtown environment, you're not necessarily in a medical environment, you're at a place where people can bring in disparate ways of looking at something, is the only way that we're going to find these solutions as systems get more complex. Yeah, we call ourselves an innovation engine with a neighborhood address, and I like that because it's important. Our place is important. So, so what's next for the port? What plans you got? What are the next big things we can look forward to? So the one thing that takes almost all my time is figuring out how we are going to preserve the 16th Air Force in San Antonio. See, they get called Air Force's cyber, but it's more than just cyber. They are a massive part of so much of our economy. And the buildings they're in, I'm not sharing secrets because they publish this on sam.gov, are falling apart. There's no MILCON, there's no money in the budgets to go build them new buildings. So if we, and by we I mean the collective we of the state, the city, the county, the port, the community, industry, don't find a solution, what is going to happen is not that somebody's going to buy executive fiat and move them, but a building is no longer operational. Some of those units might find themselves being moved elsewhere in San Antonio or to Colorado Springs or Huntsville or Orlando. And that happens over 10 or 15 years, and then somebody wakes up and says, well, we have the general officer sitting in San Antonio, but all the operations are being done elsewhere. And we saw that happen with Army North and Army South. Mm-hmm. The difference is, were that to happen, tens of billions of dollars of economic activity would follow them moving out. Same thing with military medicine. There's the practice of medicine, and then there is the development and the acceleration of medicine. We've got the surgical robot display over at the Boeing Center, not because we're trying to get in your space and do wet labs and biomedical stuff, but the issue of latency, cybersecurity, computer vision, remote control and supervised autonomy goes a long way toward being able to bring medicine to frontiers, to Arctic environments, Antarctic environments, war zones, orbital or extraterrestrial environments. And that's not going to be solved without that incorporation of the electronic side of the equation.
Yep. Yeah, we talk about that a lot. We can't do it alone. That's why we're good friends with Geekdom and the NSCC and all the groups. So, yeah, I hear you.
We are going to pull this off, and that is a giant royal we that includes all of San Antonio. We are on the verge of a major technological industrial change on the incorporation of signals and AI and everything else that will actually make things more efficient. The only way to do that is to have a sandbox where you can prove up how things like the AI augmented air traffic control system, the common software platforms, these new signals, the movement toward automated flight rules can work and integrate with our existing environment. And that's what we have at Port San Antonio and Kelly Field, is an environment where you can safely do this in a real-world congested environment. The beautiful part about that is that's going to attract all these companies that are working in applied AI and applied robotics and applied everything else. And when they're here, that makes us the next San Jose, the next Santa Clara. I am equally excited, and I say this not just because I'm sitting on your property, but what you're doing on the medical front. The ability for us as a society to really move forward is awe-inspiring. I had a couple of years ago, I got diagnosed with colon cancer. And where that was sitting, the traditional remedy was basically to go out and take almost all your guts out. And there was a good chance you were going to come out of that paralyzed or dead simply because your spinal cord and so much blood was sitting down there. But that robotic surgery got me out of it with basically, I'm not going to say no problems, it sucked, but I'm alive and living. There are some amazing things that are going to happen that are going to improve the quality of people's lives, the ability for people to live longer and be more successful. What we have to keep focus on is making sure at the same time we're not forcing people just to become machines. And this is where I'm not making any friends in the world, is a challenge that is particularly pronounced in San Antonio, but it's becoming a global challenge. The numbers I see are that to live comfortably in San Antonio, which is now the lowest cost metropolitan area in the country, a family of four has to bring home $192,000 and change a year. How many families in San Antonio are bringing that home? And so our problem becomes we have to bring in those high-value jobs. I'm a big believer in education, but asking a population to go and get educated, to spend 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a $50,000 job, basic economic theory tells you doesn't work. And I believe that what has happened in San Antonio and in many places around the country is we have disconnected the cost of our economic development activities with the return on those economic development activities. And you see that in the budget difficulties that we have in San Antonio, which is a combination of fewer people that are available to pay the taxes and more people that are requiring public services. And if your revenues dramatically trail your costs, that's a recipe for badness. We have to fix that. And that's where I get back to one of the things that I do truly admire about Velocity's work. I admire about Geekdom's work. I admire about a lot of what's going on. is the best way to fix that is to focus people on optimism. And some of the silly stuff that we're doing, like building a $300 million office tower down there, and we're going to figure out a way to get that thing working, is because of what I was told in Bilbao, that people rise to what you tell them they can be. And for too long, we have spent too much time talking about all the reasons the deck is stacked against us. And in many cases it is. But don't focus on that. Focus on what could be and push in that direction. Refocus your economic development using a stick and a carrot to get people to do what you want, and greatness will come. And I can say that 10 years ago I gave a speech downtown that almost got me run out of town. And what I said is, let's stop incentivizing low-value jobs. And if you're willing to bring in high-value jobs, we will move heaven and earth for you. When I got the job at the port, I said, I'm going to do exactly what I said in that speech. So in 6 years, our economic output has increased 256%. It's now $20 billion a year. The port accounts for 6% of the 9 counties' GDP. And at the same time, because we don't get tax money, our total revenue and our net operating income have way more than doubled. We have an occupancy rate of 97% across about close to 11 million square feet of built facilities. We have built and fully leased 800,000 square feet since COVID. And that is not because I'm a charming, good salesman. I have horrible face, horrible hair. Everything about me is unpleasant to be around. It is because we're pursuing what I'm calling a premium strategy. And the premium strategy is, if you build all your money, you spend all your money trying to attract low margin business, you have no business, no money to fund the rest of the stuff. If you attract the high value stuff, you have plenty of money to use to subsidize. So all those educational programs that we can do, the reason our NOI has trailed our total revenue is because we take a lot of that increased revenue and we put it into educational programs, we put it into development programs, and that makes the campus more attractive. It makes it easier for us to attract people. Even the Boeing Center. You can look at it and say, you guys lose money on the Boeing Center, and you're probably right. But tell me how we're going to attract people to our campus without restaurants and an entertainment center and a halo type effect. And this, this is my frustration with real estate people. I run a real estate company, but I'm not a real estate guy. If all you're trying to do is run a fungible asset portfolio, then what you're going to do is you're going to focus on that bottom line and nothing else. And you're probably not ultimately going to be successful, because the most effective real estate, the most effective airlines, the most effective theme parks, entertainment companies realize that you try and attract the premium customers. The premium customers give you that revenue base. That revenue base allows you to increase your total utilization, because now for the lower margin stuff, you can bring them in without having to exist on just low margins. It gives you the ability to stagger that. When you look at the port, the disposable personal income generated just off the port campus has gone from under $2 billion to almost $6 billion in those same 6 years. And what that is doing is that is putting the people in this community that can go buy Spurs tickets, that can go use the downtown, that can use small businesses, that ultimately put more money into the machine to drive that economic activity. I say that, I'm glad you let me say it without cutting me off, because a lot of my banker friends are telling me I'm starting to sound like a democratic socialist in my old age. But really, underneath all, and I do believe it to my core, doing this for the right community development good, it is a business model that is making us tremendously successful. And if we adopt that at a larger scale, we will find the city and the county and the community being more successful.
I love that.
Well, the Rock Box is an incredible venue. I'm going to sit here and make friends with people for a change, but they have hosted some incredible bands over there. Necrogoblicon, Gwar comes into town. for a relatively small flat floor venue, they bet way above their weight in terms of bringing those shows in. In many cases, they're shows I would love to have. They just don't necessarily fit into a venue like ours.
Well, so that's your venue. It's the size that's special, right?
Yep.
It's like, so we've got, what do you think about Paper Tiger?
Paper Tiger is also absolutely extraordinary. I've had the pleasure of meeting the folks from Paper Tiger a couple of times. From a neighborhood club type environment, it's fantastic. You know, it's just absolutely everything you need in that environment. Kind of the next level up from that is something like the Rock Box. You move up, you're not quite into a arena venue, stadium venue yet, but it's much, much larger than a club. Mm-hmm. Then you can move up to a theater type environment, take the Aztec, for example. Then kind of the next step up from that would be the Boeing Center. And the next step up from that, I don't know that we really have in San Antonio.
Oh, so we jump, then we jump.
Yeah, so what you jump into, I guess the Freeman has, it's got benefits and distractions from being a good concert venue. But going from 3,500 Boeing Center to 18,000, 16,000 Frost Bank Center, that's a big, big jump.
Well, I wonder, like, what acts we miss out. Like, what would be an act that probably a little too big for Boeing Center, but maybe too small?
That's hard to say. So sometimes what they'll do, like Judas Priest, is they'll come play the Boeing Center. They'll just play 2 nights or 3 nights at the Boeing Center. And it gives the artist a chance to kind of rest, stay in the same hotel for a couple of nights. It gets you the chance to get to where you need to be. I think our challenge in San Antonio is our fundamental challenge. We need to get the incomes in the city up. You can build all the venues you want. If you don't have the people to come and see those shows, you're just not going to attract the shows. And with the cost of a concert these days, we just don't have a population that can go see 2 or 3 shows a week. And it's what concerns me about some of our economic models that we're pursuing is you have these models where they pro form it out and say, well, we're going to have a stadium, we're going to have a couple of arenas, we're going to have a mid-sized venue in the 5,000 to 8,000 category, we're going to have the Aztec and everything else. Great. Now show me how you're going to get not just 200 acts into every one of those venues, but how you're going to get a population that is, what's the average wage in San Antonio, 30, 50,000 something? How suddenly that population can afford 200 shows at 5 venues. And one of the reasons I'm not huge into black metal is not fun.
Yeah.
Other metal is fun.
Yeah, yeah. There's like the whole, we talked about Trollhammer, the like troll metal music, like just these little weird rabbit holes you go down. Necrogoblicon, I'm glad you brought that up.
Necrogoblicon just makes me laugh. I mean, Scorpion's gone, but you still have John Goblicon out there. Ailstorm, you familiar with them?
I'm not, no.
So Ailstorm, a Scottish group that claims to do pirate metal. All their songs are about being pirates, but it's a whole bunch of drunk Scottish guys with a giant rubber duck and inflatable balls. It's massively fun. He's got a side project called Glory Hammer, which basically exists only to make fun of Dragon Force. And then there's another side project he has called Christopher Bowes and His Plate of Beans, which is him and a bowl, not a plate, of baked beans that he puts on a stool in the middle of the stage, and then does metal songs with a tuba that are all odes to baked beans. And all of this is probably as stupid as it sounds, but you put that into a show and it's a lot of fun.
Well, you said it earlier, like these folks are very talented too, so like they're not just goofing off on the guitar, they're doing very impressive technical things.
It is stuff I couldn't play in 20 years.
Yeah, very cool.
And one of
Wow. Well, okay, so we always like to ask folks, best margarita in San Antonio. Where is it?
So I haven't had a drink in 23 years, 23 and a half years. I'm the wrong person to
Oh
ask
man,
for that.
wrong. We need a backup question for Margarita.
Best queso.
Best queso, yeah. Also, there's another follow-on to that. No one knows how much queso costs. Everyone just orders. Everyone just orders queso.
I think somehow I get charged for queso.
You're not a queso guy
I'm
either.
not a queso guy either. So you want to
man.
ask me like best
Swing and a
burgers in
miss,
San
swing and a miss,
Antonio? I
burger.
can tell
I
you.
want to hear that.
Best burger? Okay.
You're going to laugh at me. Now that Fuddruckers is gone, it's Five Guys.
Well,
I
we definitely need
proudly
another question. I don't know if
admit
we
I
can
eat like
trust
a
you.
Chester's? You wanna go to Chester's?
Chester's is fine. Fuddruckers in their glory days was by far the greatest eating establishment on this planet. You may be too young to have experienced.
I
the
used to
glory
do
days.
Fuddruckers. I did not realize I was eating such good stuff. Best brisket. No, yeah, he's looking at me like he doesn't do the things. The moment I ask the
problem
question.
is, people who know me know I eat chicken fingers and macaroni and cheese.
Best chicken fingers. Let's do that.
Yeah, there's
My
great
daughter will
chicken
appreciate
fingers
this.
all over. I think that Earl Abel's down at the Boeing Center is about as good as you're going to get on chicken fingers.
Okay. I appreciate that. I like that one.